All right. So this Saturday coming up is homecoming at UAM. So our WFC Wheels for Christ will be tailgating before the homecoming game. There is a sign up sheet. I know the details here. So okay. So sign up sheet for food out there. Obviously participation and prayer request. I only have two here on the sheet this morning. Whit Pickens is the 18-month-old son of Allison Chambers and Steve Pickens, and they did remove his eye this week due to cancer, and they're pending any further treatment. So keep that family in your prayer. That's no small feat, no matter the age, but especially at 18 months. So keep them all in your prayers. And then Mr. Tony is home sick today, so keep him in your prayers as well. Anything else that I need to add? Stage 4. That's Roger's cousin, Homer Harris. Uh, Robert's brother. Homer is. Okay. Homer's the one with cancer, right? Okay, so your cousin Homer. All right. Roger's cousin Homer was in home on hospice with stage 4 cancer. So keep them in your prayers as well. Anything else? Okay. All right. Mr. Ray's brother-in-law, Pat Clark, is home out of the hospital. So praise to God for that healing. And thank you for the prayers, Pat Clark. Very good. Benita? Yeah. Trying to write these for Jason and read them whenever he gets up here. So bear with me. Uh, anything else? Okay. All right. So what was his name again? John. So John Riddle's pacemaker, right, has been moved to this Thursday. His surgery. Anything else? All right. Look, if you mind opening us in a word of prayer, please.
We come before your throne this morning in the name of Jesus Christ. We give you the praise and the honor and the glory and the power. You're such an awesome God. You know all that's been said this morning. You heard those names, Lord. We as a congregation desire you please use your power and heal us and heal those names, Lord. Please help us to do your will. Open our hearts to your word today that we may change our lives and be what you want us to be. Bless Chris. And to thank that he's worked hard this week to get into our minds
Today, to one of the probably most taught miracles, if you've grown up in the church, is Jesus calming the storm. So Matthew chapter 8, Mark chapter 4, verse 35, and then Luke 8 and 22. And I believe I'm going to read the Mark version this morning. As usual, Matthew is very to the point and doesn't have all the details, and Luke is still pretty close to what Mark accounts here. So Mark chapter 4, starting in 35 to the end of the chapter. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in a boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion, and they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he awoke, and he rebuked the wind, and he said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Initial thoughts. Anybody want to kick off the... Pretty powerful man, okay. So I'm going to use that word man. This is the commentaries made a good point that, and it may have been, I don't know if they just said this or if one of these, what did Matthew? The commentaries talked about him being tired. And so this doesn't necessarily say it here, but the point they made was it was a good example that he was man. Even though he had divine powers and was God on earth, he was still a man. You know, he had probably been preaching constantly. You know, when we look at all the verses before this of everything he'd been doing, the healing and the preaching and the crowds that were following, I enjoy talking to Josh Walker and learning how exhausting it is to do what he does on Sunday morning, and the naps that he takes on Sunday afternoons, and so you think about it from Jesus' standpoint when thousands of people were constantly following him and asking him for healing and asking him for everything like that. He did a lot of walking. That's right. You know, it wasn't any driving. This boat was probably about the only transportation, other than the occasional animal maybe. So he was man. He was walking this earth just like we're doing it today, in the fact that he was becoming exhausted. So that was one point that this, you know, because this is a pretty short story here. And so it's like, what all is there in this little bitty short story? So one, that he was man. And then two, at the same time, he was divine because of the power he had. We've already seen him do a lot of healing. We've already seen him bring people back to life. You know, but now we're reminded that he created the earth. And so obviously he had power over the weather. And one point was that weather is at least one of, if not the one thing that man has not been given charge over. There's nothing we can do about the weather, right? You know, one of the comments was, we can put all the armies and the military we want on the beach and we're not going to stop a hurricane. We can plant all the seeds. We can do whatever we want. We can't make it rain. We can't make it stop raining either. We can't have too much. So weather is something that we have absolutely no control over. We might think we've got a little more control over health and healing, and we have learned a lot. Obviously, we've made grounds there, but weather, we have nothing. We are at the mercy, other than maybe hiding underground when a tornado comes. We can just get out of the way. That's all we can do is get out of the way. You know, I was at a meeting in Tennessee 3 weeks ago, and a nationally renowned meteorologist was talking, and that's what he said. He goes, past 7 days, I'm about useless. Yeah, we give you a 10-day and we give you a 14-day, but that's just because you asked for it. We really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And he talked about who'd have predicted how wet we started off this year and then went right back into a drought. So, absolutely, we can't even predict what's going to happen.
In December 1960, I had been on an island with logging going on just out from, called Woodstock. And we cut the timber there, and so it was time to leave. And had only one way to get back and forth from the island, that was in a boat. December, river's up, Mississippi river's up. I'm getting in a boat with 12 other people. And this is a ward boat that had a top on it. I don't know the length of it, but we got out in the middle and headed in to go around the landing. And the waves started lapping in the front of the boat. Wasn't any life preservers in the boat. And until you've been in one of these situations, you really don't know how these apostles were feeling. You know, there's not much you can do in the middle of the Mississippi River. No life jackets and the waves are popping, so you got 12 men in there. It's too heavy to start off with, and you're looking around, and there's nothing you can do. And I just think we ought to think about these men. You know, although they've been with Jesus and watched all these things, they're still human. And human just like me and you. We need to really consider what's going through their minds at this time. And they're fishermen. Some of them are.
I think it was 4 of them, right, that were fishermen. So they were experienced on the water. They were experienced in the boats. And that's an excellent point. You are helpless. You are absolutely, there's just, the wind and the waves get to doing what they want to do, and if that boat goes over, you just got to ride. Larry?
This is an example of the opposite of what you had last week. Last week, the faith was there.
Yeah.
This week, oh, ye of little faith.
We're going to get to that because that's the big part of this morning. So he is man. It's a good example. He's exhausted. It's a good example that he's divine all at the same time. You know, it talked about that the storm didn't wake him. You know, well, okay, is that the divine part that kept him asleep? Or he knows what people are thinking. So he probably knew what was going on and was just, I don't know. I won't speculate too much. But, you know, it did not wake him. They talk about this lake, and just for reference, that it's a very small lake. I think it's only about 8 miles wide and 16 or so from end to end. And apparently it is absolutely in the valley of some mountains. And so meteorologically, if I said that right, that wind is known to come down into that valley and cause some very, very intense storms. It still does today. And so that was just kind of modern day evidence that, yes, this absolutely still happens today. These kind of storms still come through this area. So yeah, we had, like I say, at least 4 that were experienced fishermen and experienced on the water. Probably spent most of their life on the water in the boats. And so they know when there's nothing they can do about the situation that's going on. So he was asleep on a cushion, and they woke him and said, "Teacher, do you not care? We are perishing." So as Kelly said, we have the fear. It's human. It's I don't know anybody who has absolutely zero fear. Pretty close. Yeah, that's a good point. Small children, and they've got to learn the fear, I guess. I've got one of them. So not care that we are perishing. And he woke and he rebuked the wind and he said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind was ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" Matthew, "Why are you afraid, O you of little faith?" And of course, Luke, "Where is your faith?" And they were afraid.
But they had to have a little faith if they thought he could do something about it.
Okay. Okay. That's an excellent point. So yeah, did they wake him thinking he could do something about it, or did that just freak them out even more that this guy is asleep through this? I don't know. Okay. Save us, Lord, we are perishing. Yep, okay. So we did ask to be saved. So there obviously was that knowledge that he could do something about it now. Or hope, yeah, at least the faith in it. But then they're just amazed that he stopped the storm. So I don't know what they expected him to do. They woke him and said, "Save us," but then we're just flabbergasted that he stopped the storm. Miss Friend.
Well, in spite of the miracle that he performed, do you really think that God would have gone under with Jesus Christ in it?
Okay.
So their faith was really lacking. I mean, they thought he could do something, but they didn't know him enough to know that, I mean, I would assume that the boat would never go under.
So that was a point that the commentaries did bring up was, was this boat really going to go under? Were they really going to perish with Jesus on the boat? And so, Miss Becky.
They did just like we did. We pray and we're amazed when he answers our prayer.
Okay.
I don't think they really knew the extent of his power. They knew it over the physical, but nature and other realms.
Yeah. And I thought about that a few times and I try not to be too harsh on these guys because we're not a whole lot better. I'm not. But we have seen him raise the dead. We have seen him make the lame walk, which is pretty outstanding. And so I don't know that, in my mind, I would like to think I would think any different about nature, but we're not seeing it. Jason?
That's one of the things I was just sitting here trying to think of. Had he raised anybody from the dead yet that they had witnessed? And is that why they're so scared? Is because
And I'll be honest, I may be off. We're not doing these in order, so I didn't go back and have to line them up.
Timeline here, because they may have, but
Yeah.
it may go to explain to why they're so scared. Is they've seen Jesus do some things, but they've never seen him raise the dead yet, so they're still scared of the death.
And it may be. That's a good point.
Because that's the thing. I mean, they think they're about to die. I don't know if they know yet or have seen the ability of Jesus to raise somebody from the dead.
Because the next story is when he heals a man with a demon. So yeah, I didn't put them in order. So I may be misspeaking when I say heal the dead.
I might be off too. That's why I was kind
So-
of curious. I was wondering, had that happened yet?
He did just have the talk. Where a few of them said, "I'll follow you anywhere," and he says, "I have no place to lay my head." One wants to bury the dead. So those conversations had just happened right before this as well. The centurion was before this. He's healed a lot of people, and so.
I would think that's something you wouldn't want Jesus to ask you. Why are you so afraid? And I thought about that when the churches were closing their coast. So why are we so afraid?
Okay. And so that's probably my biggest question for the group this morning. Is what did he really mean by that as far as his faith? Is it, and then how does it relate to today? How do we apply this to today? As we talked last week, none of us are getting out of here alive. Okay? Unless we're still here when he brings us home. That's the only way out alive. Right? And so what's the message in this? Mr. Mike?
I think a lot of times we need to wait. We get impatient.
Okay.
We get in a hurry, and there's examples all through the Bible where people tried to help God because they didn't think he was moving fast enough.
Okay.
And the worst case scenario, if they hadn't drowned him, they were still been alive.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Larry, you had something?
He mentioned the tornado a while ago, and sometimes I think fear motivates our faith.
Okay. Absolutely.
And then we start praying, and in this instance, they start going to Jesus and say, hey, help.
Okay.
So I think that fear motivates our faith.
Okay.
That should be there at all times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all good points. Impatience, I don't know any of us who don't have impatience. And Mike's right. You know, we, especially in our society where, let's be honest, none of us are destitute. You know, there's still parts of the world where people are absolutely destitute. And if somebody doesn't do something for them, they will die. And we don't necessarily have that as rampant here. And so, one, I think our impatience is we are used to getting stuff done, we think, on our own. We probably don't credit God as often as we should, but our society and our upbringing is, man, you suck it up and get the work done and have the fruits of your labor. And we've got to remember to bring God's blessings into the fruits of those labors. He's going to provide the fruit and the harvest. And so some of it, I think, is our society's way of thinking when it comes to our impatience and, well, I'm going to help. You know, most of us men in this room are probably what we now today say are fixers, right? My wife comes to me and fusses about something, I'm going to take care of it. I don't really want to sit and listen. I want to get up and fix it and let's move on to something else. I've had to learn with my mother just to sit there on the phone and listen. I can't fix it. You're too far away, so I've just got to listen. And half the time that's what, you know, that patience. And half the time when I try to fix it, if I'd have been patient, like Mike said, there's probably a better solution that would have come about if I'd have just put a little more time and patience into waiting, thinking, whatever it needs to be done. Ms. Fran.
Well, I was just thinking a little bit on what Marty said. Maybe they had faith in Jesus that if he were awake, he would do something, but they didn't trust
Okay.
the fact that while he was asleep that anything would happen.
Okay. So maybe didn't trust their faith was whenever he was walking with them and he was awake and alert. And maybe they didn't, you know. And sometimes we have more confidence in what we do in this world depending on who's with us. You know, be it a job or whatever. Sometimes you have more confidence when you're working with somebody. So, you know, excellent point.
And I think society today has, well, I mean, they want instant gratification. Instant. I mean, instead of the patience and
My-
the faith
Okay.
that things are going to do or be the way they need to be.
Mhm.
It's we want it now, and we have so much access to so much information with the internet and all of that it's like, well, why can't we have it right now?
That's right. That's right. The microwave age.
Yes.
You know, we want it right now. And we also see, it's called the iceberg effect. You know, we see what somebody else has or they've achieved. Well, that's only this much sticking out of the water. They don't see what the years that went into whatever you're looking at before then. So, absolutely. So, you know, I think you can wrap all that up in self-reliance. In the fact that I can do this, I can do it faster, instead of letting God's plan and God's time play out like it needs to be. And I've given multiple devos on if you look back in your life and you look at what you tried to achieve and the plan you had versus how it really played out. A lot of times it played out a lot better and it didn't go the way you planned on going. But boy, if it had have, it might, you're pretty glad it didn't most of the time. So, do you have something, Larry?
I'm trying to think of the scripture. God is not slow to answer our,
That's right.
I can't think where it is exactly how it goes.
Yeah, you know, in His time. In His time, that's right.
Chris, could it be that he's knowing the future, he's asking them to be afraid of death?
Okay. All right, I'm glad y'all brought that up. That's where I was wanting to go with it. Marty brought it up a little bit earlier. So she asked basically, was his point, why are you afraid of death? Why are you afraid of death? And so, if we have salvation, if we've obeyed the gospel, if we've lived like we're supposed to live and we're confident in our salvation, why are we afraid to die? Okay? The unknown. Okay? And that's the biggest thing I can think of.
But it's really not unknown,
Okay? Okay?
or we should know.
And I think that goes back to the control. I think it goes back to the control we feel like we have over our lives right now. You know, with all the riches and the technology and the instant availability of food, whatever you want to wrap all that up into, we feel like we're in control today, especially in this country. And so I think that's what's that unknown is, man, what's it going to feel like? Am I going to be cognitive of it? You know, and I guess it depends on your manner of death. And if I'm drowning, I'm probably going to be cognitive of it, which is probably one of my most feared ways of going, if you want to know the truth.
Not only that unknown, but the unknown of what's going to happen to Leah and the kids.
That's right.
What's gonna
That's
happen,
right.
you know,
That's right.
are they going to be okay?
Mhm.
Because as a parent,
Yep,
it's my job to make sure he's okay.
it is. That's right. So, I made a living talking about that. Have I done what I needed to do to make sure they're okay? Because I'm not guaranteed tomorrow, and that goes a long way. Have I got a living trust in place that if something happens to both of us, we know who's got them. We know that they're going to be raised by Christian people. So, but while I'm here, have I taught what I can as their father? You know, at now 6 and 8, have I done everything I can do that if I don't wake up tomorrow, I know there was nothing else I could do. So sometimes the fear may be in what we know we haven't done. We know we've fallen short. I got you. Hang on one second. You know, so sometimes I've not studied this, but I've pondered on this a lot. Where is my fear really rooted? Am I focused more on the fact that I know I'm imperfect? I know I might not have done everything I'm supposed to have done. I've done some things I shouldn't have done. That goes back to last week's message of forgiving myself and really believing in, is He really forgiving me for all of this?
I think you hit on a key word, trust. You trust God to take care of it.
That's right.
And if you don't have that trust, then you worry about all this other stuff,
Mhm.
death, are they taking care of, and so on.
Mhm.
If you trust Him, then you have that peace that He's going to take care of it.
And that's right. I mean, because go back to the children's standpoint of things. I mean, even a parent may do the best or not at planning for that. How many times does God still step in and take care of those children? You know, now He's given me the knowledge and the wisdom and the tools to do it, but you know, it's not outside of His power to still make sure they're taken care of. You know, after both of us or one of us is no longer here. You know. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
I think that question, will He too, is really important to kind of piggyback on what Regina said, because will He really forgive me? You know, will
Yeah.
I mean, because Larry was mentioning, I think this scripture earlier, that the Lord is not slack concerning his promise, the Son and not slackness, and that's in 2 Peter 3:9. But he has always fulfilled promise. When I committed my life to him, he promised me an avenue of forgiveness and grace. He will do that for me. I think the interesting thing is that they say, Lord, save us, and that had been done. I mean, and here they are fearful of what will happen.
Expand on what you mean by it had been done.
Well, I mean, I think, the law goes backwards and forwards, the new law.
Okay?
And so these men had committed their lives to
Mhm.
working with Jesus.
So your point being they were saved. He had saved them before they died.
What was the fear in death?
Exactly.
Going to wait.
And that's my point that I'm driving home is if we're saved, then why are we fearful of death?
Well, and also we perish. I mean, Jesus was trying to tell them,
Okay?
you get to be eternal.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not really a perishing.
Yeah.
It's just physical, which, I mean, also what you were saying earlier, I think like the fear and death really is a separation. Just because I know what that feels like on the other side, and I think it's not maybe fear for me, but the people I'm leaving behind, and that question comes again, have I done enough? But I think, again, I mean, should something happen to me or Josh, I have to believe that God would provide,
Mhm.
because that was part of his plan.
Right.
Had to have been part of his plan.
Right.
I trust that plan. Even if I don't maybe like it and it scares me, kind of like these men.
Yeah.
This happened for a reason. It was part of the plan. They might not have liked the way it was playing out, but it was part of the plan.
Yeah. Mr. Joe.
I was thinking about Jesus when he was in the garden there praying for this cup to pass. I think it was the human side of him knowing and the dread of the punishment or the pain that he's going to have to suffer.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that me, even dread and thinking about, what am I going to have to go through in passing?
Mm-hmm.
Some people go to sleep and they never wake up.
Sure.
When they're in a coma and pass, they don't feel anything, they don't forget,
Mm-hmm.
And yet, we're still here, we don't know what we're gonna have to go through that change.
Right.
From this life to the next.
Right.
We have faith in what's on the other side, and we try to live by faith here on this side,
Mm-hmm.
but what kind of pain am I gonna have to go through to get there?
Yeah.
And it's a dread.
Mm-hmm.
If you stop and think about it,
Absolutely.
it's a fear.
Like I said, and like you said, Jesus prayed if it, if it's possible, let this cup pass from him. So that human side was coming through, and he knew what was coming. He knew the pain that he was fixing to go through. Back to what Carly said, I think I understood you correctly. You made a point in there that if you die, you worry about the suffering that the family's got to do here. So my father and I had this conversation quite a bit, even long before his diagnosis. And I told him one time, I said, man, I know it says, no greater love hath a mortal man to give his life for another. I think I'd rather these three go and me be stuck here to suffer and to deal with the world, because I know where they're at. I know they're at peace, and I can be at peace at that. But I almost fret more if I go first and they're left here to suffer, without me. And that goes back to the control and probably the patience part that we've already talked about. Is I feel like if I'm still here, all right, everything's good. I can take care of it. But if I'm not here, and that's where that faith has got to grow on that side, that I'm not really the one in control, even though I'm still here. And so, to me, I think ultimately it comes down to that faith that, as Carly said, they were already saved. Even if they did perish that night in the boat, they were saved. And so, is that where the faith is? Do we have the faith that no matter what, no matter how bad it gets, one of two things, he's either going to carry us through it, And we may come out looking like Job on the other side. Okay? We may not be in the same position that we're in today. We may not have the same belongings we have today. Or we may not make it through and we're in eternal salvation. Kelly.
David, in man, that's what God's own heart said in Psalm 138:8. And this is for us as children of God. The Lord will fulfill His purpose for me. I think we've got a lot of this. We worry about the future and all these things. We worry about it. And here I am, almost 87 years old, and I've been through all this. But it's coming more home to me now because I know time's short. But when you read God's Word and He talks to you like He did to David, you look at 139 and 138. Really look at those and digest those. They're awesome. David says He will fulfill His purpose for me. And that's something you and I can put trust, hope, and a lot of things in, know that God's in control and He's going to fulfill what He put you here on earth to do.
No matter how long or short that is.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Mr. Ray.
This kid is on the right track, I think. We're about the same age. What did He put us here for?
To glorify Him and spread the word.
Have we done what we put purpose for? Is that why we're still here? We haven't finished.
Okay.
That really bothers me. I don't know.
And that thought comes up on the other side of it as well when we lose somebody early and we lose somebody young. You know. And we know our purpose in general, I guess I would say, but we don't know specifically what's left for us. And we just got to keep going every day and keeping our eyes open looking for that purpose. Not.
You know that Job did a lot of questioning.
He did. And he was very faithful. But he still questioned. That's right. Mr. Mike, is that you?
I think our fear and doubt comes in as, and you mentioned it earlier, we all, as human beings, think that we can earn salvation.
Mm-hmm.
We want to try to earn it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and we can't. And we know we can't down here. But the only way we're going to get salvation is through inheritance. We have got to become children of God.
Mm-hmm.
And then by inheritance, whenever it comes to judgment day, it's not going to be the sinner and the righteous. It's going to be His and those are not His.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Okay.
You mentioned that the whole thing that you would rather the family go because, you know, you knew what would happen to him and stuff. If it were the other way around, is that a failing of the church that you don't, your first thought was not the church will take care of them, they will be okay? That we're not close enough, we're not high enough?
Okay. Is that a failing of the church? So the thought that I had talked about with me and Dad, just our discussion of I would rather them go and me be the one left here to suffer versus, you know, them losing me. My thought was not so much worldly provisions as it was the emotional suffering. You know, that was, if anybody's got to suffer, I'd rather it be me than them, was the conversation we had that day. So.
And I guess that's one of the things that keeps us so scared to death is we're always sorrow. When somebody dies, we're mournful, we're sorrow, and that's what gets us. But yet, and I'll use your dad, it was a joyful thing. He wasn't suffering anymore. He was ready.
Yeah.
And I talked to a lot of older gentlemen, they're ready. They've
Yeah.
accepted death, and I think that's when death loses its grip, is because they conquered it.
Yeah.
So I'm not scared of you anymore.
Yeah.
I'm at peace with what, I know my fate, I'm at peace with it, I'm good. And I think that's why Jesus was so calm in all this, is he already knew he could conquer death. So why is he afraid of it? And I think that's what he's trying to tell them and trying to tell us is, why are you so afraid of death? Because it's been conquered. Now, we hang on to the sides of it that we can't control because we're mournful, we're scared of it,
Mhm.
we're afraid of losing people, we miss them, and all that, but they still live in our hearts, they still live in our minds, we have all those memories,
Mhm.
and I think that's the thing that death has over us, is that he's got us convinced of all these bad things that go with it, not what Jesus said. It's eternal.
Okay.
It's just the beginning of eternal life with him. And yeah, we've got a lot of shortcomings, but that's also why there's grace.
Mhm.
And it's also why Jesus came to this earth to do what he did, is to provide that grace for us. And so it's not an easy thing. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm still scared of it, like you said. But I also have to have faith knowing that, have I done enough? Yes, I've done all I can do
Mhm.
to raise my kids right, to be that example.
Yeah.
Outside of that, a lot of us have to make our own decisions. And so
Yeah.
I just think that, I want everybody to think about it the other way. We're scared to death because of the negative side,
Mhm.
but let's think of the positive side of death, if there is one.
Yeah.
There's no more suffering for that person.
The race is finished.
Yeah.
My boss and I had that conversation recently, and he proposed it an interesting way. He goes, "We're praying people out of heaven. You know, when we're selfishly asking for healing when they're suffering, and you know, we're praying them away from rest and peace and healing." You know, it was an interesting thought. I thought, well, that's and Josh Walker and I both have discussed this, and that's a tough battle to decide how to pray when you're facing that. When you're facing that diagnosis and that certainty, it's a struggle of.
Just go back to Jesus' prayer.
That's right, and that's the biggest thing, because but you put that up against asking, it will be given. So do I not have the faith he will heal if I don't ask? And that's the battle you go through internally when you're facing death with somebody. So, Kathy.
You always go to Philippians 4 and be anxious for nothing but in all
Okay.
things.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because yep.
Whatever, and then God's peace.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you said that, because I didn't write that down, but it was in the commentary there in the study. Philippians 4, don't be anxious in anything. And of course that encompasses even more than death. That encompasses just struggles we face here on earth. Is, you know, his peace is more powerful than understanding, and so you know, that faith that he's going to get us through whatever it is, even if it's not facing certain death. You know, we're focused on the death side of this little faith right now, but you know, do we have the faith that he's going to get us through whatever it is, regardless of the outcome, regardless if it's the outcome we want or don't want, because that goes back to trying to do his work, like Mike said, instead of being patient and, oh, here we go again, what I wanted was not the best for me, and God got me through it, and what he had planned was a whole lot better, which could come down to death. I'm going to try to keep saying that, but that could be the best outcome, and we just don't know it.
There's a saying, there's things worse than death.
Okay, there's things worse than death. That's right. You know, if you spend any time in Revelation, it's going to get pretty gnarly, and you may or may not want to be here. I don't know.
If you live right,
That's right. That's right. And so, you know, yeah, that's right. Well, and you just think about suffering. I mean, when we think about somebody who's physically suffered for a while, and it's a relief. It's a burden when they do. It's a relief when it's no longer a burden when they pass, because they're not in pain anymore. Their pain and their suffering has ended. And so, anyway, that's right. You know, just that suffering is a good example that sometimes is worse than death. Miss Pam.
All of this shows the abiding care that he has for the people. And there's so many Christians that think the boat is sinking,
Okay.
but the boat can't sink because Jesus.
So there's a lot of Christians who think the boat is sinking that still haven't realized the boat can't sink. Man, that's a perfect summary. I tell you what.
I think an application to, whenever we're facing something that's uncertain like these men were facing, I think if we do turn to the Lord the way that they did, with their little bit of faith, which
Yeah.
sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, yeah,
I think the result that he brings is the peace and the calm.
absolutely.
And then on the other side of that, when he's brought the peace and the calm to our lives, and we come out on the other side, we are the ones that then can marvel at what his power and his capability is and what it can do. I just think that's a really straightforward application for us today.
100%. And that's when, I think that's when you allow the power of God to be seen. Is when you truly back up, let go, and just say, all right, you know what, you got it. And it's hard not to try to take it back from him. I'm the chief of that tribe. I'm going to tell you, Kelly knows what I'm talking about. So we'll end right there at Philippians 4:7, and all the peace of God which surpasses all understanding. We don't have to understand it. So I misread that verse for a lot of years and thought it would provide me understanding. No, I don't have to understand it. I just need to have the faith that's going to provide the peace about it. Yes, ma'am.
Read verse 6.
Verse 6. Oh. All right, Philippians 4:6. Let me get there. I had a short abbreviated version of that. If anybody gets there before me, spit it out.
Verse 13. I just did all things.
Philippians 4 and verse 6. Say it again.
Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer.
That's right. And that's what Ms. Walker brought up earlier, yeah. So be anxious for nothing, ask for peace.